Good evening. Thank you all so much for coming. This really makes us happy to see so many people interested. So I'm Angie Hatton. I'm chair of the Kentucky Public Service Commission, and we are here as part of our, the mission that we were assigned by Senate Joint Resolution 140, which came out of the legislature last year, which instructed the Kentucky Public Service Commission to get ready to regulate nuclear if it happens. And so this is not intended to be in any way promoting one form of energy over another, but more informational. We definitely do not have all the answers. And there's a good possibility that some people here in this audience have some answers that we need. So this is a information gathering. We want to know what questions you have. We want to know your concerns. And then this is the first of 6 stops across the state of Kentucky. And what we'll do tonight is first I'll have Jurgens Funsale from, he's an attorney with the Kentucky Public Service Commission, who will give a little bit of an overview of what the Public Service Commission does and what our role is here. And then I'll have Kenya Stump, who is the Executive Director of the Kentucky Office of Energy Policy, give a little bit longer presentation, but not too long, because we want to have plenty of time for anyone who wants to ask questions. I will go through the list of those who've indicated on the sign-up sheet that they, yes, want to speak. But then after those people speak, we'll open it up to anybody else who's changed their mind, even if it's just a question. And I'll instruct you on how that works after our 2 presenters. So, Jurgens.
Thank you, Chair. It's wonderful to see everybody tonight. As Chair said, my name is Jurgens Funsale. I'm one of the staff attorneys at the PSC. And I'm just here to lay out a little bit of what our role was, what the General Assembly, what the legislator asked us to do, and sort of some of the steps we've taken and where we sort of plan to go next. But first, for those of you who don't know, the Public Service Commission is just the agency in charge of regulatory work. The way that tonight's going to go is, as the chair already said, we have this presentation. We'll have an overview from the Kentucky Office of Energy Policy, and then we'll have some comments. Time for you all to come up. I know we have 2 microphones there for anybody who's indicated that they would like to leave a comment. The only thing we'll say is that the meeting is being recorded, and it'll be placed into the record for this case so that anybody can view it online. So that's where we are. So the Public Service Commission was founded in 1934. It's a 3-member body that's appointed by the governor. It's confirmed by the state senate. And it is responsible for regulating more than 1,100 utilities in Kentucky. Most of those are the small water districts, but obviously all of our generation distribution, electric facilities, as well as some of our gas distribution. Everything that we do is governed by a suite of statutes and regulations that are promulgated. That is the extent of our authority. And so that is sort of the extent of what we can do. So the commission opened this case in response to Senate Joint Resolution 140. And in clear terms, what it told the commission to do was make all staffing, organizational, and administrative preparations necessary to be ready to discharge our duties for siting and construction of nuclear facilities in Kentucky. That's obviously a very broad group of things, and this case is what houses it. As part of this, it gave 5 specific directions. And again, I apologize that these are relatively lengthy, but I want to make sure that everybody understands specifically what we've been tasked to do. So far, it is conducting a survey of regulatory staff in other states to ensure that we have the necessary knowledge to determine the kind of pay, experience, and qualifications necessary for nuclear specific staff if there is a case that comes along. It is told us to contract with personnel outside of the commission that are experts in nuclear regulatory matters to assist us if and when a siting case comes along. Obviously, the staff is they've informed the staff to get training, and there's been a number of those events that have happened already. And the last 2 are related to our regulations. So The number 4 here talks about our IRP, which is our planning process, basically for generation planning time. They come every 3 years, and they tell us basically what their plan is over a 15-year period. Number 4 talks about making sure that we review those regulations so that nuclear is tested on equal footing with all other generation, right? So gas, coal, solar, batteries, anything else that comes along, it's just supposed to put it on equal footing. And then the last one is to review again the rest of our regulations and statutes and consultations with experts in state nuclear regulatory matters to amend the remaining suite of statutes and regulations that we may have, once again to ensure that nuclear isn't favored, but that it is on the same and equal playing field as all the other generation resources that the state reviews. So that's just a very quick overview of where we are. So what happens at this point? So the commission has already held 2 informal conferences up to this point. We've had comments from a number of industry experts and the public. And what's happening next is 6 public comment hearings like this, or public comment meetings. And it will culminate in a formal conference on May 12th and 13th in Frankfurt, which is where a lot of experts from outside of the commission will come in and help us fill the record, help us understand a number of questions that we've been developing as the case moves along. That's why these public comment meetings are so important. It allows us to see if there's anything that you all think that is important for us to know. And again, I know that was a very quick presentation. If you have questions about the case and how it's operating, please feel free to ask. I'll answer them to the best of my ability. And please understand that during the public comment meetings, the commission, because we speak through orders and we speak through reports, can't necessarily answer things about the outcome of a case or what is determinative, but we're certainly happy to answer any questions about process or clarifications that you may want to have. And I'll just leave that for a second. If anybody has one, you can raise your hand. If not, we'll move on. Okay. Seeing none, I will hand it over to Kenya. Thank you all.
We can just for a second.
Yes, ma'am.
I forgot to introduce my commissioner. Commissioner Andrew Wood is here with us tonight. And Commissioner Mary Pat Regan could not join us, but will be at some of the others. And now, Kenya.
Well, hello, everyone. We're so lucky to be here at this great facility, and I'm really happy that we're having this here at Morehead State University. Don't get too comfy. We want your participation. I'm Kenya Stump. I'm with the Office of Energy Policy. A little bit about the Office of Energy Policy. We're in the Energy and Environment Cabinet. We're a non-regulatory office that deals in all fuels. We work in coal, natural gas, renewables, hydrogen, now nuclear, all across the spectrum. Kentucky's an all of the above state in terms of evaluating the types of fuels and technologies that we want to utilize here in the Commonwealth. We focus on energy education, energy affordability, energy security, and we run a number of federal grant programs. I'm going to be quick, but know that these slides will be available, and you can always contact me. My contact information is at the end of the presentation. We're happy to engage on any topic that you see today that may be of interest. So we're here today to really talk about fission. So even though when we talk about nuclear energy, we talk about fission and fusion. So just to level set, fission is we're taking an atomic particle and we're slamming it into a uranium atom and we're splitting it. And when that splits, a lot of energy is released. Fusion, on the other hand, is we're taking 2 hydrogen atoms, we're slamming them together, and we make helium, and fusion is what powers the sun. Fission is commercially available and operates today to generate electricity globally and here in the United States. Fusion is currently in development, 2 projects primarily in Tennessee and in Virginia. A little bit of a primer on uranium. So a typical uranium fuel pellet is about the size of your fingertip. Just as a comparison, that's as much energy as 1 ton of coal, 149 gallons of oil, or 17,000 cubic feet of natural gas. That's why we're here today to talk about this, because it's such an energy-dense fuel form to utilize for electricity production. Nuclear power is not new in the United States. It's been successfully utilized by the U.S. Naval Reactor Fleet for 75 years. They operate 273 reactors, both in the Nimitz-class aircraft carriers as well as the nuclear submarine program. So, let's go through how we make electricity with nuclear energy. There's that nuclear fission reaction. A lot of energy is released, creates heat. Heat makes steam. The steam turns turbines and generates electricity. And then that's sent off into the transmission system, the wires, and eventually comes to your home or your business. Most of this process is very similar to a natural gas power plant as well as a coal power plant. The only difference is the front end, and that's that nuclear reaction compared to burning coal or natural gas. It also provides some advantages for high energy intensive industries, for industrial processes, as well as thermal energy storage. But we're not just here to talk about reactors. This is very familiar when we think about our coal industry in Kentucky. I'm from Muhlenberg County in the west, but I've been here for about 25 years. So similar to our coal industry, the nuclear industry starts with mining and milling of uranium. That's converted, goes through enrichment, makes some fuels. Those fuel pellets that you saw, your fingertip, go to a fuel fabrication facility. And then those go to a reactor or utility to start the process of making electricity. From that, we do get waste products. We have waste products from all types of electricity generation. When we look at the life cycle, we get low-level waste with nuclear as well as spent nuclear fuel. Low-level waste is disposed of according to federal regulations, and spent nuclear fuel right now is stored on site at our reactors according to DOE and NRC requirements, Nuclear Regulatory Commission. All of these opportunities outside of mining are really available economic development opportunities here in the Commonwealth, and we'll see how that could play out in the state. But really, why are we here today to talk about nuclear? Why did the PSC get a resolution? Why are we looking at this? The technology has evolved compared to what we built 50 years ago. It's highly reliable, and for Kentucky, that's important for our industry, as well as our residential customers, our businesses. Nuclear power operates almost 24/7 with very minimal downtime. We have a history in nuclear energy that began in Paducah, Kentucky in the 1950s, and we'll talk about that. That's very important in this conversation. It produces almost no emissions. It's considered a zero carbon electricity generation source. However, it does impact the environment in other ways other than emissions. The byproducts, as you can see, are highly radioactive, and we must be managed for hundreds and thousands of years. The risk of accidents are low, but the consequences could be potentially severe. We have plenty of examples that show that in our history. Nuclear power plants cost a lot today, but that cost can be spread over 80 to 100 years for the life cycle of a nuclear power plant. And nuclear power always brings up conversations about fears around nuclear weapons proliferation. the technology and materials, and we're still concerned about that today. But for today, nuclear energy provides 18% of the U.S.'s electricity production. That uranium that we utilize comes from primarily Canada, Kazakhstan, Russia, Uzbekistan, and Australia. So we are seeing for the U.S. nuclear fleet a drive to supply domestic fuel for our reactors. We do not produce electricity in Kentucky with nuclear energy. However, our customers do consume power that comes from nuclear energy from surrounding states. And I mentioned Paducah. This is one of the original posters from the 1950s where it was known as Atomic City. Paducah was home to fuel enrichment at the gaseous diffusion plant. It operated there successfully and supported the U.S. Mission in World War II. That plant was decommissioned. As a result, it's now looking at 2 new enrichment projects in Paducah that would laser enrich uranium as well as centrifuge enrich uranium for the existing nuclear fleet in the United States. So where does our nuclear power come from in the U.S.? Those blue dots you see are 94 reactors and 53 plants. We have reactors that surround us, and I mentioned due to our electricity infrastructure, which means we actually are able to consume some of that nuclear power from our surrounding states. And we have no blue dots in West Virginia or in Kentucky. Lessons from the past, we have to acknowledge that we do have a history of nuclear energy in the state. The Paducah Gaseous Diffusion Plant, as well as Maxey Flat, are both lessons learned from our past when we did not have sufficient federal and environmental controls in place to properly handle the waste generation and waste management. Briefly, who regulates nuclear electricity generation and nuclear fuel? That's the Federal Nuclear Regulatory Commission. They have jurisdiction over all nuclear reactors, material facilities, and materials. If it generates electricity with nuclear energy, that regulatory authority falls to the Nuclear Regulatory Commission. As Juergens mentioned, the Public Service Commission comes into play when one of our retail electric providers wants to explore nuclear and then must present information to the PSC and justify, is that reasonable? Is it cost competitive? Is it not duplicative? Is it necessary? And so it's a combination of approval from the NRC, but our PSC oversees all of Kentucky's retail electricity providers. So what are we talking about? I mentioned today that technology has improved. So I'll use a term called conventional nuclear. Conventional nuclear, here's the Tennessee Valley Authority's Sequoia nuclear plant. It's a 2,000 megawatt reactor, pressurized light water. Considered conventional, it's probably on, I think this plant is probably 500 acres. So it's a very large facility. Technology today, when we're looking at newer advanced nuclear projects, this would be the TerraPower Natrium reactor. Now this is smaller, but it can be scaled. This is a 345 megawatt rendering, and it would sit on about 30 acres compared to the Sequoia plant. The TerraPower project is currently under construction in Wyoming, and we're monitoring that project as well. So today we have a variety of reactors available I mentioned the large scale. We wouldn't probably build a conventional reactor. We would do what's called a modern large reactor. That would still be an advanced reactor today. And we'll go through a case study of one of those that was recently built. The TerraPower reactor, like we just saw, is considered a small modular reactor. Small, meaning it's smaller than the conventional. Modular, meaning it can be manufactured and transported and scaled in a modular fashion. And then we have the microreactor, very small. These are truck-sized reactors. Of note, Fort Campbell in Kentucky was selected for a microreactor project through the Army's nuclear Janus program. So it is possible our first reactor in Kentucky may be a Department of Defense reactor at one of our defense bases. These advanced reactors in general range in sizes, have a smaller footprint, offer flexible operation, can incorporate modular manufacturing in a state that may have advantages for advanced manufacturing, can produce process heat for industry. And for renewables, nuclear is important because it helps integrate renewables into the electricity system, helps stabilize the intermittency of the renewables. And modern day reactors that are advanced have what's called passive safety features, meaning they do not have to have an active decision when it comes to safety. The reactor uses its own engineering and physics to control its safety in the event there's a process disruption. Just to summarize, this is a quick summary, but I like, say it 3 times and it kind of sticks with me. Conventional reactors are predominantly large. Advanced nuclear power generation are versatile from micro to small, but can be large in some instances. Wide variety of technologies. Older reactors primarily relied on water. Newer reactors use different kinds of coolants. Conventional reactors were primarily baseload generation, meaning they run 24/7. Advanced reactors do the same, but now we can be more flexible in how they operate as well. And safety has changed. Newer reactors are designed with inherent safety systems that are not active but passive, relying on their engineering and design and physics to control the safety of the reactor. But we have lessons learned, and that's what we're here to talk about today. This is Plant Vogtle. It is a large conventional reactor, still an advanced reactor, the latest one that was been built in 2023. So what was wrong with it? Well, it was over budget and it wasn't completed on time. And that's a problem if you're looking at the cheapest form of electricity. And we've learned a lot from Plant Vogtle and how we can control this so that it doesn't occur into the future, such as having complete designs when you go to construction. Would anybody build a house and not have your house plans complete? Right, no. So with Plant Vogtle, the design plans were not standard when it went to construction. We didn't have the workforce to build Plant Vogtle. We hadn't built a nuclear reactor in 40 plus years. We just lost the skills to build it. And we didn't have the supply chain. Couple that with not being able to really get good contracts in place, and the result was over budget and not on time. But when we talk about nuclear, everyone talks about the waste and spent fuel. This is an example of a spent fuel storage canister. You can see the human figure there. They're very large, but it's a storage cask, the canister, and the bundle of the fuel. We'll go into a little bit more about what this looks like and how it's regulated. As I mentioned, your fuel pellet goes into a fuel rod and goes to a processing facility like Framatome, and they'll make a fuel assembly. Those are what goes into the reactor and causes the fission processes to begin. After the fuel is spent and you're not getting that fission production, they're cooled for quite a long time in these storage pools at the reactor. And then at 5+ years, they go into the dry cask storage for storage on site at the nuclear reactor. Again, the NRC and the Department of Energy regulate spent fuel management today. The NRC will license DOE to operate a repository that will meet EPA standards. That has not been completed today. There is no permanent repositories for spent fuel, which is why it's currently being stored at each power plant site in the United States. Other countries have geologic repositories as well as different spent fuel management. France comes to mind. They recycle nuclear fuel as well as working on a permanent geologic repository. This is what spent fuel looks like at a reactor. This is the DC Cook plant in Michigan, operated by American Electric Power, I think. Yes, head shakes. Yes. So this is what 49 years of spent fuel storage looks like. This is at the Cook plant. Those are the dry casks. Until DOE completes its mission to identify a permanent repository or implement reprocessing of nuclear fuel, the NRC has determined that it is technically feasible and necessary to store the spent fuel at the power plant sites until DOE completes its mission. The United States does not recycle spent fuel. Now that's spent fuel from a conventional reactor. Just a note, advanced reactors offer different waste advantages. I mentioned a pellet and a fuel assembly. This is an example of a fuel assembly that would be in a golf ball size. I call it like a gobstopper. So it would look like, it'd be about the size of a gobstopper. It would contain the uranium pellet, but it also would contain the safety features and provide advanced safety features due to how the pellet is manufactured. Advanced reactors also will have reduced spent fuel volumes, and they centralize the spent fuel management. While these are improvements, it does not remove DOE's responsibility to find a permanent repository for spent nuclear fuel, and recycling does not solve that problem either. So, for communities, if you want to host a reactor or a fuel facility or a waste interim storage facility, what does that look like? Well, let's talk about a reactor, like right up front. A reactor project is very large. Host communities have to consider a large number of items that could impact both negatively and positively into the community. Population growth and demand for infrastructure becomes very evident. For instance, if you all of a sudden have 1,000 construction workers coming into your community, what does that mean for housing, for roads, for water, wastewater infrastructure? You're going to have a lot of support for small businesses, traffic changes, road improvements, additional costs for emergency response personnel, planning. Property valuations may change and not be uniform throughout the community. A lot of increased community education and engagement and potential legal assistance, and then land use changes in the community as well. So these are all the things the community must consider if we're looking at adding nuclear power generation to that community. But the benefits are these projects are around $10 billion over 60 to 80 years. We're now seeing projects going to approach probably 100 years. So you have a large tax base increase in the community, 1,000 construction jobs, and over 300 to 500 permanent jobs, depending on the power plant size. Average wages are around $69,000 to $125,000 for working on site at the reactor plant. In general, for every 100 jobs, you see around 50 indirect jobs that happen due to the power plant location in the community. Revenues, tax revenues from the project can, in some instances, account for 50% of a city's budget, meaning it can pay for the schools and infrastructure and a lot of improvements over that 60 to 80 years. A lot of STEM and career and education opportunities. We have seen that in Oak Ridge, Tennessee. As STEM education increases when you site nuclear facilities in the region. And if you are a power plant community, it's a prime opportunity to reuse that existing infrastructure for potential nuclear energy projects if your current power plant is slated to be retired. We are very lucky in Kentucky. We value community voices as well as empowering communities to take proactive steps around nuclear energy. We have a process where communities can become nuclear ready. This was passed in legislation through our General Assembly. Communities have to host 2 public education meetings. They have to show that they have economic development and workforce opportunities around nuclear, and they have to show formal support through a resolution or a ballot initiative that would show that they have support for nuclear energy in their community. If a community is interested in that and can accomplish those things, they can apply through the Kentucky Nuclear Energy Development Authority to be designated as nuclear ready. And then at that point, we would look at what kind of partnerships would we work with through Cabinet for Economic Development to start looking at projects that could locate in that community. And now that's all I have. I've taken you through the whole supply chain. That's me, kenya.stump@ky.gov. Email me all you want to. I'm here to answer any of your questions. And now, I believe, Chair, we open for comments.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Kenya. We really appreciate you being here and helping us with this and all that you contribute to energy policy in the state of Kentucky. While I'm at it, I want to thank Morehead State University and the Ronald G. Eaglin Space Science Center for loaning us this beautiful facility that I hope was easily accessible to everyone. I noticed a little bit of construction, but I hope that didn't inhibit anyone getting here or finding us tonight. I also want to thank my staff. There's several members from the Public Service Commission here tonight, and definitely could not do this without my staff. So this meeting, as Juergen said earlier, is being recorded, will be placed into the record in this case proceeding. And so we are here today to take public comments related to the Commission's electronic investigation of nuclear energy generation, storage, and related matters. We understand that in any case proceeding, there's not going to be 100% agreement. I just ask that if we have disagreement, that we're all civil about it. When someone's up talking, give them an opportunity to finish talking, and I'll make sure that you get the same courtesy in return. So I normally, when we have these things, the commission can't answer any questions because it's about an open rate case and we're the judges in those cases. It'll be a little bit different tonight. We can have a little bit more of a conversation, but mostly it's going to be your opportunity to make whatever statement you'd like or ask whatever questions you like. And even if you don't get an answer tonight, the question gets into the record and gets investigated. So we do value everyone's opinion. And if you have questions I know there are people here from labor, from workforce, from some of our utilities, from the Center for Applied Energy Research at University of Kentucky, and I know we have people from community groups here. But if you have questions, you can. I encourage you to talk to each other, exchange contact information, and keep the conversation going beyond tonight. This is the first of our 6 meetings. I'm really pleased with the turnout and the interest tonight. Given the number of participants, we have over 40 people who've signed in, but less than 10 who indicated they wanted to speak. So I'm going to go through the ones who have already indicated that they want to speak. And when I call your name, you can go to either that microphone or that one over there on the other side, whichever one's more convenient for you, and just tell us your name. And then I'll give you like 7 minutes. But we don't have that many people who signed up to speak. So if you go a little over 7, that's still okay. And then I'll go back through and see if anybody else has come up with a question or decided they wanted to speak. If you didn't put yes, that does not mean that you don't get to speak. And we'll stay as long as you guys want to talk tonight. So with that, I'll also remind everyone that we take written comments in Public Service Commission cases. You can write to us at 211 Sauer Boulevard, Frankfort, Kentucky 40602. And if you do so, make sure and put the case number on there so we'll know which case to record your comment in. And this case number is 2025-000186. That's 2025-000186. You may also email your comments to psc.comment@ky.gov. And again, case number 2025-000186 needs to be somewhere in that correspondence so it'll get recorded properly. Okay, and with that, I'll go to the first person on the list who indicated yes, they'd like to speak, and that's Lorna Mangus.
Hello? Can you hear me? Twenty to push a button or anything. Can y'all hear me? I don't think it's working like the. Is that green light on? At the top of the mic? Oh, he's coming to tell us you. I think you need to speak. We've got one here. We've got one here. Okay. Shouldn't say close.
Let me go check the levels and I'll give you a thumbs up when you're ready.
Okay. Yeah, sure. Speak of her.
Okay. So, yeah, I'm Lorna Mangus, and the Kentucky Conservation Committee helped me some with some of what I'm going to be noting here. We see significant challenges in nuclear energy still. First of all, it's extremely expensive due to massive capital costs, complex regulations, lengthy construction times, cost overruns, et cetera, et cetera. And so it can actually cost up to $20 billion from the time that it's that you start the planning until operation. It's so the actual levelized cost of the energy is higher than renewables and every other type of energy at this point. Even though it's levelized, through the time that it's in operation. Let's see. It doesn't fit timelines. It usually takes at least 20 years from planning until operation. And what are we going to do for energy during that time period? the many of the safety concerns and waste impacts around nuclear energy still do exist. There have been many developments over the decades with this energy source, but many challenges still exist, such as long-term management of radioactive waste, the risk of catastrophic accidents, radiation exposure, and potential security threats. And the cost of storing the waste has to be factored into the cost of operating and constructing. Let's see. I guess that's probably all that I have at this point. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll take that. Come here.
Thank you. The next person on the list who indicated yes was Max Morgan, or Moran. Moran, yes, please.
This working, man?
Oh,
Green light's on. Oh,
yeah, it's working.
all right. Magic
We
microphone.
can hear you. We can hear you. Yeah.
So good evening, Commissioners. I want to introduce myself a little bit. My name's Max Moran. I've talked to you guys before, but tonight's a little different, mostly because being back here in Morehead. Funny story, before I get into my public comment, I actually learned about nuclear energy as a student here at Morehead in this very room. A professor I had who's since retired, I'll call him Professor K, he actually taught us about nuclear power and all of its aspects for weapons and reactors, energy. Really neat, so I want to thank you guys for having that here. But overall, and I want to kind of address the PowerPoint, very, very lovely PowerPoint. It had a whole lot of the things I've said, even since I was a student, and have learned over the past few years since I've graduated. When it comes to nuclear power, and of course everyone in this room probably knows, the biggest thing that we always ask about is the waste and the security. Nuclear power in general, the science is strong. It works. Like was said, the physics is strong. Depending on the reactor design, the modulator, everything that goes into it, they're designed stable in the United States. Our reactors, even from the 60s, were way better designed than other reactors around the world. But the main thing I want to get across to the Commission tonight, and it's really more of an open-ended question, and about the only thing that I can think of that's a call for concern and more open-ended discussion.
Yes.
With what was said tonight, that the waste is stored on site, and I do know that to be true because you have to have the cooling pools for the spent fuel. With these new technologies, these SMRs that are popping up, which are good, the question I have is it better to have one large nuclear location, one reactor site, or would it be more better to have 5 spread out across one area? And the reason I bring that up is, like I just said with the waste, is it better to have one location that stores the waste or 5 locations that stores the waste? Other than that, that's the only major concern I can see at this time, but it's a question I hope the Commission can address and see if there is a cost to benefit ratio. Is one thing we learned in the space science program, there's risk to everything. And the main thing you always got to remember is the stakeholders. In this instance, the stakeholders is the residents of Kentucky. So that being said, thank you. And thank you guys again for having it here.
We are certainly pleased to be here. I'm going to have a little bit of trouble with the last name, but I can tell that the first name is Ivan. Thank you. And will tell us your full name when you get to the...
Hello, my name's Ivan Hargesheimer.
Okay, thank you.
The main thing I'd want to mention is that I'm studying here as a physics student here at Morehead, and so I've been following the nuclear industry for a while now. And one of the biggest trends that we've been seeing across the globe currently is that unilaterally people are moving towards more, I'd say, cleaner sources of energy like nuclear or renewables. But one of the issues with that when it comes to areas like Kentucky is with how most of the energy production at this moment is still tied up in coal and the coal industry, it would leave a lot of people just switching immediately would leave a lot of people without jobs, and it would leave a lot of communities. You can't really, if your coal plant gets decommissioned, as several around here have been, then you can't wait 10 years for a nuclear plant to be constructed. You can't just spend 10 years, waiting to get a job at some future plant. And I think the main issue as well is that as things are moving away from coal, there needs to be a larger focus on renewable sources, and primarily solar specifically. Compared to about 20 years ago, we've gone far beyond any, we're much more efficient with solar than even the best predictions for it would have been. And right now, in a lot of places in Kentucky, the amount of money it would take to switch the entire grid to solar, including all the construction cost and maintenance, would be less money than simply running your coal plant for one more year with just the regular upkeep costs. And to that extent, I think there needs to be a larger focus on solar as opposed to nuclear being a panacea that will fix all of our energy problems. With that being said, I still do support this project as it currently is, because there does, the main issues with renewable energies are that intermittent, intermittent issues where when you have periods, weather, for example, is a large variability factor. Nuclear does help smooth out those issues. And I think the current proposal with this, while it's not going to solve a lot of issues, giving communities the ability to decide that they want a nuclear plant or not want a nuclear plant in their area gives more power to your local community to decide what's right for you.
Thank you.
Let's do it.
Didn't have the slightest inkling of a sneeze until I get up in front of people. Next on the list is Catherine Shelley. Or Sheely?
It's Catherine Sheely. I had no planned comments. I'm just a person that lives in the community and was interested in the topic. I guess my primary concern is what people have pointed out, and that's about waste storage. This is something that's going to be around for hundreds, maybe thousands of years, and as you pointed out in the slide, with Maxey Flats being so close by, we realize that some of these containment strategies don't hold up very well over a period of time. I have to say also that sometimes our regulatory bodies are impacted pretty significantly by changes in political thought, and funds are withdrawn, ideas are changed, and it's kind of hard to know what we're going to be passing on to future generations with something of this nature. At the same time, it looks like the positives are very intriguing. I don't know that means we should dismiss them out of hand, but just given Eastern Kentucky's issues with waste from our energy sources, the coal mines, et cetera, and still dealing with that, I think that is a big concern for me personally. Thank you.
Thank you. Maddie Reffitt. Please correct me if I'm not pronouncing these. Okay, thank you.
Honestly, I don't know if I'm going to be for the
OSI energy test.
Okay, sure, it's okay. Sure.
Hold it.
Okay, I think I am. Yeah. Okay. Hi, I'm Maddie Reffitt. I'm here speaking on behalf of MSU Evergreen, Kentucky Conservation Committee, and the Sierra Club. I'm here opposing initiatives to move towards nuclear power for a few different reasons. One of the reasons being cost, another reason being waste management, and another reason being disproportionate effects on rural communities. Cost-wise, we've already seen kind of hikes, I would say, in energy, hikes in, any utility bills for people in Kentucky, and nuclear energy is really expensive. I think that it would hike up bills even more for Kentucky families. As far as for waste management, and as well as just even powering nuclear energy, the concern is similar to data centers for AI, where it's like, where are we going to put these things? Can we hear me okay? I feel so muffled from my end. Okay. The concern is like, where are we going to put these things, which kind of goes into hand with disproportionate effects of rural communities. A lot of these things get put, out of sight, out of mind in really small areas where people already don't have a voice. And then third of all, just thinking about natural disaster plans. Like, we've been really prone to flooding here in Kentucky. We've been really prone to other natural disaster issues that makes me really feel like we aren't prepared for something like this. And a lot of people in rural communities probably would not be prepared for something like this. I think that's all I had.
Thank you. Anissa Catlett?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you all. I really appreciate the presentation. That was very informative. My name is Anissa Catlett, and I actually live in the capital. I'm from Frankfurt, and I've been following this renewable technology, as you can say, generation 4 reactor technology since August. I have been working in the energy sector, oil and gas industry, for the past couple years, and a customer came on site. I just want to give you some backstory. Customer came on site, and we usually produce these big, massive rider rings for big, huge nuclear plants, not the SMR plants or the advanced plants actually that's going in. So it actually sparked my interest. So since August, I've been looking into a bunch of stuff in regards to us and to do some deep diving. So back in August, I started everything based on the customer who came on site. And what sparked my interest was that it would only take 3 to 4 years to build these type of generation 4 reactors. And a lot of the concerns that I was like, oh no, meltdown, I heard of all this extra stuff. And then I started deep diving into even further stuff, that you have molten salt, you have liquid sodium that actually can prevent a meltdown. So I'm thinking, okay, everything that I was concerned with, I just literally did all my research. If we go into generation 4 reactors, use molten salt, which basically reuses and recycles the waste, so that actually sort of reduced some of the waste. I thought, this is great. This is really, really good for America, because then I actually looked at the cost of this would actually move us into a cheaper rate for electricity. How much actually we would actually pay. And I said, okay, 11 cents, 12 cents versus 3 cents, where if we actually move into a generation 4 reactor, using like a molten salt to actually cool things down and to recycle some of the waste. I'm like, yeah, I'm moving in that direction. And I would say just recently I started to change my opinion on it, because I started to deep dive even further who was investing some of these companies, because the July 4th is the pilot program that our federal government or Department of Energy says, okay, this is a deadline. These 4 companies that have been narrowed down to do the generation 4 reactors and, get us to more of a renewal point, I guess you can say, of moving not the 30-year build of a nuclear plant, but something that's going to take 3 to 4 years. So I thought, okay, so this deadline is July 4th. So what are they going to produce? So I actually followed a company called Allo, which was actually my customer's partner they ventured with. And I thought, okay, I'm going to start deep diving even further. And then I got a little scared about some of the stuff that's coming out about the data centers. And then I started deep diving a little bit more. I'm like, oh, so the 2 of the companies I researched immediately had ties to the data center. And I'm like, of course, I'm a little scared, I guess you could say, the data center, because if you all haven't heard, that can basically just wipe out any type of jobs, and we're going to be really struggling, even white collar jobs, from anywhere from even manufacturing jobs. And you also can think of, if we are not working, no tax money is going to the system. So anyone who's retired is not going to get Medicare, Social Security. So my brain's going all over the place. So I start changing to a 180, thinking, rah, let's do this. And this is what America needs. And then I start deep diving into finding out who just the 2 companies out of 4 that has a deadline with our federal government. And one of them has funneled money to Allo, or should I say Valere, and that was Elon Musk. And I'm not a fan of Elon Musk. So then I deep dive into the other company. I just picked 2 companies out of 4. Then I seen Bill Gates, and I'm like, of course. So my concern is, I think this is great that we can have good energy, or I should say renewable energy. But on the other hand, I'm a little scared because I think the push is coming from the data center side of things. Because if they don't have that energy to funnel through, it's going to cost them a lot of money. So then I deep down even further, and I noticed that we have, $75 million allocated right now so far, and $25 million of that's on SB 57. Senate Bill 57, that's sitting there. It's got favorable push to go ahead and allocate $25 million just for soft cost. Soft cost is basically just taking these guys with suits, do some analysis to see if we actually can put a nuclear plant there, or should I say, the small SMR, the small modular reactor plant, or even an MSR. So I thought, okay, cool. So then I reached out to the senator. I said, hey, give me some information. Why are we looking at just throwing $25 million right now just at soft cost? So I think we already have a lot of money already invested into this, or should I say we're pushing to it. And by the time we're done with it, it's going to be a lot of money out of our taxpayers. We just actually, the state of Kentucky reduced from 4% to 3.5% our taxes. You can bet your bottom dollar here in the next probably 5 years, we're going to be way up there, because we're not only going to be funneling the data centers, especially the ones being built out in Louisville, because there is I'm trying to figure out what that bill actually is, where it's supposed to be where the data center is supposed to pay for all of the costs up front, unless the contract has been signed. Since that contract has already been signed out in Louisville, the Rubbertown plant, the residents and the commercial businesses will have to help pay, or should I say their rates will actually go up unless you guys fight for them. And I did read that the PSC will have to fight to make sure those rates do not go up. But I know that company, the Poe Industries and the partner with the other one, they're supposed to pay a portion, I guess, of that rate. And the residents and the citizens are actually stuck with it, because that bill that's sitting there that needs to actually that they're probably going to push through and pay, they're exempt from it. So this company that's already building the data centers, taking up all of our energy, now there's citizens around it, it's going to basically pay, or have a price, or should I say a rate hike because of that. So I don't mean to be rambling on, but I'm sitting here thinking there's so much stuff I actually can tell and talk to y'all about this, just because of all of the deep dive that have been going on. But the nuclear issue, that's the 20-year, I understand that people think it's going to take 20, 30 years to make. Not with the direction that Elon Musk and Bill Gates actually went ahead out to do. It's going to take probably 4 years from groundbreaking from that. So it's going to be built fast, and they're pushing for it because they want their data centers built. So, I mean, I'm sort of torn, because I would like to have less rates, or should I say a cheaper rate, and then, build some type of transit system to from metro to metro. But then, on the other hand, I think we're going to be overridden by that because of the individuals that actually are investing money into the MSRs or the SMRs. So in other words, I just want to say that I'm actually opposed to it. I actually was 100% for it, but I would say that I'm opposed to it just because of I know what the hidden agenda is. And it's from those two companies that I've researched that they actually had invested money into to push some of the nuclear. Sorry. Thanks, guys. I didn't mean to talk in circles.
Thank you. Do we have others who would like to speak? I see maybe somebody moving toward the mic. No?
Oh, no, I'm good. I'm 100% fulfilled.
That's actually all of the people who said yes. Oh, yeah.
I didn't say yes, but I would like to.
Yes, please.
I'm Dr. Pamela Clark. I'm on the faculty here at the Space Science Center, and I'm the director of the Star Theater, where you are now meeting. Hope you enjoy it.
Thank you very much for the very informative and interesting tour as well.
You're welcome. We give tours here also of the Space Science Center. My question is, what about the technology that's recently been developed? I think the French are using that has recycling done right in place where the plant is built. Like with Oklo in Tennessee is actually developing. Is that being considered as an option under the new technology category? Because my big concern is who monitors what's going on at these sites, whether they're on site for an existing plant or elsewhere. And a lot of sites in the U.S. have actually been talked about that are remote, such as the Nevada desert. But who monitors what's going on, or what happens to an old plant that's been decommissioned? Because we're talking about a very long time, much longer than our political cycles, not just a 4-year cycle, but maybe even tens of thousands of years. So that's my big concern. That's why I'm curious about this technology that I know is being developed that does the recycling basically in situ and reuses the material basically for a long time.
Yeah, Kenya, would you like to talk? I know you know about how France is ahead of us in recycling materials. If you'd like to.
In general, yes, France recycles at La Hague. It is a recycling facility. It does not negate the responsibility for a permanent waste storage solution because there's still waste from the recycling. It does reduce the waste volumes. We do not do it here because it's not economical to do so in the United States. It is cheaper to currently source uranium and process it that way.
Why is that? I'm just curious.
The technology. It's really not cost competitive in France either, but they have a requirement to do so, not an economic reason to do so there in France. In terms of oversight, even after decommissioning and while in operation, the Nuclear Regulatory Commission has all monitoring and oversight of the spent fuel facilities in cooperation with the utilities operating those sites. So it's still the federal NRC and responsibility for oversight.
Okay, just that's a long time of the oversight.
It is.
It's a big commitment.
It is.
Thank you.
Here we go. Okay. Anyone else thought of a question? Or I see Joshua Ball here is from Workforce Development in Eastern Kentucky and Economic Development. We have lots of folks represented from labor. Do you, if we have questions about workforce, or if we could persuade Kenya to talk to us a little bit about expectations for workforce. I know that there's been a project between Idaho National Labs and the SOAR organization here that Kenya was real involved in. She could talk to us about the people who have already been hired. But since I put you on the spot, Mr. Ball.
You did. So,
I'm a graduate. There we go. All right, that helped. First of all, this will eliminate any questions when I leave. I can get back to Johnson County quicker. Hopefully, no, I'm kidding. Thank you for hosting us here. Probably the biggest thing I want to get across was kind of what I said at the governor's conference is, a lot of you all are talking about nuclear and you think this is just some crazy, idea or, how do we do it in our community? I want to put on the record that, first of all, there are more than 50 Eastern Kentuckians right now that are working inside of nuclear facilities all across the country that is doing outage work right now. Of those individuals, only one has decided he doesn't want to work in nuclear anymore because he was displaced from natural gas and went back to work in the industry. So when you hear about reactors and all these things and you're like, what is it happening or how could it happen in my community? It's already happening in your community. I think 11 of the 50 plus live in Perry County. For example, I was just in Harlan last Friday discussing, I think 3 of them are in Harlan County. So these are individuals that have been displaced from the extraction industry that are working inside of nuclear plants all across the country. So they're going to work and they're coming back to Eastern Kentucky and taking care of their families. So they're working 20 plus weeks out of the year. So we see that as a unique opportunity for Eastern Kentucky to be at the front of the line of this conversation. So it's not an idea in Eastern Kentucky. Most of you are nodding your head like you didn't know that was going on. So we're continuously working with Framatome and we're also now working with Westinghouse as well. So that's going to come online here in the next few weeks. These are travel jobs, obviously, but we're never going to turn our back on an opportunity for Eastern Kentuckians to go to work. And so that's what we're doing, with that. I've learned a lot about nuclear. I don't know a lot about it still because it is a lot to take in. But I do want to commend the commission and Kenya and the team for elevating the conversation, and more importantly, on the record, stating that the state included Eastern Kentucky in the conversation to begin with. And it's nice to know that, quite frankly, we're at the front of the line in nuclear in Kentucky, in Eastern Kentucky, because when companies need people to work and be a part of a team and to do something bigger and bolder than any one of us, you turn your eyes to the hills, where people went under the mountains to dig the coal. They timbered and they fueled America's revolution, and right now we are fueling other forms of energy with the same ingenuity and work ethic that is in the hills and hollers of Eastern Kentucky. So again, thank you for coming to Morehead, and Angie, welcome home. This is Eastern Kentucky, it's home. It's good to see you. And Kenya, thank you for all the work that you're doing with us and helping us continue to learn more and to build greater capacity around nuclear across communities in Eastern Kentucky.
More comments or questions? Yeah. Well, you'll get to next, okay?
That green light's on. I don't need a mic most places I go. My name's Myron Lewis. I'm the Elliott County Judge Executive. I also sit on the NEDA board, the Kentucky Nuclear Energy Development Authority, with Chair Hatton. We had a meeting last week. We had two folks come in, representatives from a company called X Energy and another company. I've got it on my phone, but they're in Oak Ridge right now. Kairos, thank you, Chair. Kairos Power, and they had representatives there that did excellent, and they talked about the salt, which was impressive to me, and how much farther we've come. And most of y'all are probably from around here. You understand I'm a product of coal displacement. My dad lost his job in 1994 from Pittston Coal when they bought Addington. Where East Park sits now, that was Job 7, and my dad was all over every inch of that when that coal was mined when I was 10 years old. So it's funny because now I sit on the East Park where I have someone on the East Park board. I'm the chairman of the FIFCO board, and my dad helped mine that coal 40 years ago where I'm at right now, and hopefully one day my boy, who's 10 years old, might do something at ACTC or Mighty Con or one of those places down there that's going up. But when you think about the history of Eastern Kentucky, you go back to timber, coal, and you go back to the other things we've got. Of course, we've got the natural beauty here, and I heard the gentleman speak on solar. The issue that judge executives have run into with solar over the last few years is, what do you do in 25 years when those things go bad and there's no place to put them and the company just goes defunct and they up and leave? That was some conversation that we had, because they can do hundreds of acres of those solar panels, but in 25 years when those solar panels are no good, or 30 years, what do you do with that? Because that takes 1,000 years for it to go back to the earth as well. So I think now's the time that we spend some money, if the money is there, to look and see the options of where this can go. I'm appreciative that the General Assembly is at least divvying into that. I'm appreciative that the PSC, by gentle nudging, is involved as well, because of the Senate or the resolution. That's where I'm at. That was no meant for anything negative, but not that you wouldn't have done it anyhow. Sometimes I speak before I think. But anyway, it was the response to what I meant to say in my comment was respectful. But I am for this to see where it goes. We've got business operators, CEOs, and we have union companies. My grandfather helped build the nitro plant. My grandfather helped build the big Sandy plant. Now half of it's gone, and I'm all for it being rebuilt again the best we can, and for the power, hopefully at some point, to do better by us. I pay a power bill every month, as probably does everybody in here, and I think we've got to go somewhere. The jobs are, as Josh said, Eastern Kentucky, Western West Virginia, and Western Virginia built in the Industrial Revolution. We built this country, people and labor from here, and I think it's important that we get back to that and we offer those same chances for us to use our hands and our minds, and we do what we can moving forward. And let's see where this goes. Now, I understand the data centers. I heard the lady, she's gone down several rabbit holes, and I don't think any of them are wrong. I worry about that too, and I heard the lady here speak about the politics of it. What happens if this leadership goes and a new leadership comes in and they defunct something? That's also a worry that we have. But I think that the rest of the country's moving forward. I think you're seeing it in Washington State, you're seeing it in New Mexico, you're seeing it in Texas, you're seeing it in Virginia, and you're seeing it in other places. There was nothing on Kentucky, and I think it's time that we took a look at that. So I thank y'all for your time. It was good to see two other judge executives here, Judge Sparks and Judge McKenzie, and I thank you all. And Kenya, I don't know you, but I learned more watching your presentation than I've seen so far, so I thank you, ma'am.
Kenya's a Kentucky treasure. That's not up for debate. But we can debate absolutely anything else you guys want to talk about. Well, I think you had, yeah, or you can yell if you don't want to go with the mic.
Yeah, maybe not. Y'all can.
Okay, once again, I'm taking the mic and spewing my opinions. I wanted to first, I guess, respond to what you said about like how they can be built so quickly now. And I was also doing some research about there's been several, I think about 4 executive orders in the past few months by the Trump administration pushing forward nuclear energy. We can debate about whether or not that's a good thing or not. But they're making licensing quicker. They're doing all these other things. And I think that's a cause for concern just because the science behind, I don't want to rush the science behind that. And I think with changing policy, policies changing so quickly, the NRC has changed safety regulations due to this, and that worries me. Another thing that I wanted to say was just that, honestly, I forgot what else I was going to say. So I think that's it.
I'll hand it over to the next person for you. Bam, did you say you had
Yeah, yes. Okay, I promise I won't go in circles this time around, guys. Okay, so I know we're talking about the nuclear option here, but what's the next steps? What is it once you guys have all your 6 meetings, what's the next steps? Because you're already seeing that we've already have millions of dollars already that's been granted to us to use for nuclear renewable nuclear options, I guess you can say. So what's the next steps? Because obviously we are going in that direction, or we wouldn't have already been granted that lots of money.
So from a
procedural standpoint, this case represents the next step, right? So we are tasked with essentially gearing up for and being prepared for a project that comes along. Obviously, no siting project has occurred, no construction or certificate of convenience has been filed. This is just starting that conversation. And we will inform the General Assembly when we have done all of those things and we are ready to go. That is all that, from a procedural standpoint, will be happening with this case. Obviously, all the other substantive questions you may have, those will come up as utilities review them for economic things in their integrated resource plans, or moving forward other policy decisions that are made at levels that are not for us.
What's that timeline look like?
Well, the timeline, I think, is open at the moment. Certainly, we want to move on our part of it as fast as we can, but we don't know of any projects that are occurring at the moment. So again, that's why this is the dialogue that's starting.
And I'll add to that. So the Public Service Commission's doing a 6-city tour. We're also going to do a 2-day conference, May 12th and 13th in Frankfort at the Kentucky History Center. We've invited panelists from all over the country to come in and talk to us about everything from environment to national security to the technology involved, to how do we fund it. We're pretty excited about the panel that we've put together. And our goal at the Public Service Commission is to fulfill our role that was given to us by this resolution, which is to explore and investigate, figure out the pros and cons, get people talking, and get questions answered for people. And then from there, the SB 57, which has been mentioned here, has not made it all the way through the legislature. It passed Senate committee yesterday. It's sponsored by Senator Carroll, who's from the Paducah area, and has been sort of leading the conversation on nuclear because of all that's going on in Paducah. If you have more questions about that, Kenya knows an awful lot about that stuff. But so Senate Bill 57 would, if passed, provide up to $150 million in grants. I thought he added 150.
I think
It's 75 for the 75 for 3 different early site permits, and the idea would be $25 million in grants, $25 million from an interested utility, and then $25 million from a private industry partner. So it could be 3 different $75 million sites. The bill requires that they be geographically dispersed. We could expect maybe eastern, western, and central Kentucky, or at least not all clumped together in one area of the state. And then the additional $75 million in that bill, assuming it passes, would be for grants for ancillary industries that support nuclear. So factories that build parts to support the nuclear industry, workforce development training, things like that. So I'll let Kenya have the mic now and see what else she'd like to add.
So I do not work for the PSC, so I get a little bit more liberties in what I can say. It was a very good question, like where do we go from here, right? So it's a really complex topic. And I think where you go from here is you take your concerns back to your community and you start engaging in the process, right? We are so fortunate in Kentucky that we have a process where communities can come together and have a voice and determine, well, they may determine, I don't want to be in the nuclear space. And that's acceptable because that's your community voices. Communities can decide, well, I don't want a reactor, but I want manufacturing to support the widgets, or I want to train nuclear certified welders to go be welding at a nuclear site. Paducah, obviously, is probably going to step up as a nuclear-ready community because they're really just interested in fuel fabrication and potential recycling. So it's not just about it's not just about power production in your community. There could be actual manufacturing opportunities that don't have anything to do with radiation, but just supports the fleet. The new, you mentioned, and great work on Gen 4. Those reactors are designed to be manufactured in a factory and very modular. That means Kentucky's well positioned to say, well, hey, we want to participate in that manufacturing opportunity. So if anything, go back into your communities and start bringing in people to help educate your communities, start having a conversation, look at your economic development sites and say, well, what do you want to use there? If you are a power community, somebody mentioned Big Sandy, was it Judge Lewis? You know, you mentioned building a power plant. Nuclear small modular reactors can backfit on the back end of a coal plant, you know, if it's decommissioned, someone mentioned at the right timing. Or if it has enough land and you want to add additional generation capacity. So that infrastructure in your community is a valuable economic development opportunity. But it's really your decision on where Kentucky wants to go. It's not my decision. It's not the commission's decision. It's not the utilities' decision. It's your community's decision on how you want to participate in this. It's complicated. We need to have all the voices there to participate. But that's where I would go. Go back and start engaging in your community. Start doing your deeper dives. And if you need people to come talk to you about spent fuel management, if you need to go visit a site, if you want to go see a storage cask, these are opportunities where, we can start thinking about how do we educate, because we are a state that's not familiar with producing power from nuclear. You go down to Oak Ridge, you go down to Watts Bar, you go down to TBA, and those communities, it's just a natural fit for them because they've had those nuclear reactors there for a long time. So, and also, talk to the people who are at the Kentucky Nuclear Energy Development Authority. That's an independent group that's really tasked for this. Nothing in Senate Bill 57 says that we're going to build a reactor. Senate Bill 57 just says we're going to have an opportunity to explore that and potential locations in the state. And as the chair said, it hasn't been finalized. It's out there. Go read it. Go participate with your local legislator. Ask questions. Get involved in the process. That's my advice.
So here's where I'm going to go. Everybody thinks that grants are just grants, like, free money, right? But it really comes out of all of our pockets. And the data center in Louisville is what? They get like a 50-year tax break. That data center out there for 50 years. They get tax breaks, right? So that's a data center. So think about how Kentuckians are struggling right now, because I will tell you what, my husband and I, we make some good money, and I still struggle. I mean, I'm like, oh my God, that grocery bill is just ridiculous. I mean, I just feel like we're just jumping into so many projects. We got the data centers. Now we're going to be moving into the nuclear side of things. And we already know the exploratory, you said it hasn't moved, the SB 57 hasn't moved, but that's $75 million just for exploratory, right? So that's $75 million. That's not even going to go into the nuclear, or whatever we decide, an SMR or an SMR Gen 4 reactor, or even an old 30-year-old way to build nuclear. But I just think that all of us Kentuckians, we're kicked down, and we're spending money, and it's like a blank check coming out of our pockets. And that's how I look at things. A $50 million tax break for a data center. And on top of that, we're going to be moving into, even though it's a federal grant, well, who knows actually who's going to fund the rest of that. I'm sure it's still, regardless whether it's going to be us locally. So when you refer to communities, yes, we can talk about not having it in our community, but it's actually going to be still coming out of Kentuckians' pockets, regardless if it's in your backyard or not. So I just feel like we're just spending money on things other than education, and I think education should be the priority, and we should take it a little bit slower than actually with the direction we're heading in right now. We're struggling. I'll just say Kentuckians are struggling really hard in taxes. More and more projects keeps throwing at Kentuckians. It's just more money coming out of us, so we'll never get ahead. Thank you.
Is there a comment back here?
Yeah.
And right behind you too, sir. I thought you've had your hand up. Sorry.
Uh-huh.
I didn't say that, Zena.
Yeah. Okay.
So, I did have another question that just came to me, kind of in the realm of both engineering and practicality. And kind of hammers on what you was talking about the AI data centers, because there's something else that I just was sitting here thinking about that needs to be addressed. So back home in Mason County, which, be upfront about it, we're getting an AI data center somewhere between needing 2,000 to 10,000 acres. Secretive company, bad deal, but that's not the point of this question. Across the river, Brown County, Adams County, Scioto County, and whatever county is in Piketon, all in Ohio. Well, this morning, I seen an email from a friend over in Ohio, and I know it's a different state altogether, but Piketon, Ohio is set to get 16 nuclear reactors. Now, will that happen? Don't know, but there's economic development people slowly in the works and in emails telling their people this, and there's a potential for a nuclear site between Ripley, Ohio, and Aberdeen, Ohio. So, kind of the question I have, and I know it's limited because it's another state altogether, but what, I guess, regulation, oversight, whatever the word needs to be, can this commission or the state government have if a nuclear reactor is just basically built right across the state line? Is there anything that can be done in terms of like safety oversight?
So with that, that's part of in my presentation. So when a project, and there are potential projects around Kentucky and other states, from Virginia all the way over to Indiana, and you included the Piketon one. The Portsmouth area is very active, just like Oak Ridge and Paducah, and they have a lot of nuclear projects there. All of that is under the DOE, or the Nuclear Regulatory Commission. The Nuclear Regulatory Commission has prescriptive requirements and safety reviews, as well as public engagement opportunities. What happens is a license will get filed, and then similar to how we do proceedings here with permits, and there's an opportunity for a comment, and everything from emergency planning zones and safety reviews and all of that. So simply, it's the Nuclear Regulatory Commission is the authority when it comes to your questions about how Kentuckians may engage with projects that are on the border. It all depends on when those licenses are filed, and then that opens up your opportunity.
Okay, and then just one more question that's kind of purely engineering.
I'm not an engineer.
No, that's fine. It's based on your PowerPoint where you said it's possible to retrofit old power plants.
Well, yeah, go ahead.
The question, not to put you on the spot, it's an opinion more or less. Is it cost effective to retrofit, say, like the Cooper Station, for example, where it's coal fire? Is it possible, cost effective to retrofit it from coal to nuclear?
So actually, even though a lot of the same equipment, what we call the balance of plant equipment, would be similar, like the turbine, the way you make electricity. The way we do it is we'll decommission a plant, right, and then you kind of backfit a new plant. When I talk about reusing infrastructure, the most valuable infrastructure at a power plant site that would be available for reuse on a nuclear backfit would be really your transmission. So that's the value that a current coal-fired power plant site, a natural gas site has, is the transmission interconnection there. It would be very rare that you would still keep like the turbine or things like that, especially with the way the SMRs are. So could it be done? Yes. Would we do it? Probably not, but we definitely would keep the transmission infrastructure available.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. I wanted to ask if Kenya might talk a little bit about the SOAR and Idaho National Lab Collaborative, since we're in Eastern Kentucky, about the type of workers that are needed. I assumed it was nuclear engineers. Turns out that wasn't what was mainly needed. And tell us a little bit about the types of people who were hired and the types of people they'll still be looking for.
It's actually trades. So the best example I can give is I went down to TVA, and I was in their control room, and I talked to the gentleman there who operates the control room, and he said, I got out of the military, they gave me a job at TVA, and they taught me how to operate the nuclear power plant. In Kentucky, it's trades. It's like welding. It's like radiation technicians. It's quality control. It's electrical. It's pipe fitters. It's plumbing. Those are the skill sets necessary. Judge Lewis pointed out, you've got to have the trades. Now, there are specialties, like nuclear welding is a specialty. And you have to get trained to work in an environment that has nuclear there. Most of the trades aren't working at the reactor itself. They're working on the turbines and on the cooling units and the electrical. Long story short, it's trades, and if there's one thing Kentuckians do well, it's trades, and we build things that power the nation. That's why we partnered with SOAR to help put displaced workers who have trades background back into the workforce in a way that can get them experience, that can come back to Kentucky. And as Josh always says, family sustaining wages for Kentucky families.
And what are some of the ancillary industries, Kenya, that in addition to just nuclear power plants, what are some of the industries that we know we need as we try to bring all of the different aspects of our energy production back onto U.S. shores?
Well, in nuclear, I'm going to start there. The reactor vessels, they're forged in South Korea. We don't forge anything in the United States. That's an opportunity to bring forging back. Kentucky knows how to forge. We have steel and aluminum facilities. That's a prime example. Nucor, you want to talk facilities currently engaging in this space? Nucor, which is a large employer in the state, is currently stepping in to have nuclear grade steel. Like, that's how we're fitting into the supply chain. Dow Chemical in Texas is working with reactor developers there, and we have a Dow Chemical facility here in Kentucky. Everyone wants to talk about nuclear in the concept or in collaboration with data centers, but heavy industry needs nuclear, like our steel, aluminum, chemical industries. If you're an industry and you use a lot of electricity, you like to have that 24/7. So that's an example. But we need software companies. We need engineering companies. We need construction contractors. We need procurement firms. We need people who can manage contractors and crews. We need all of that that can support the nuclear industry. Paducah is really stepping into fuel fabrication, fuel enrichment. They would probably, Josh, they probably want a fuel assembly facility like Framatome. That's their next step. Enrich fuel, then they want to make fuel. And then I think you attract someone mentioned aloe and oklo. Once you have these industries, you then attract other opportunities on the supply chain. But forging comes to mind, as well as just software, digital circuit boards to go into control rooms, welders, engineering firms. You don't have to be a nuclear engineer to work in the space.
That was part of the idea behind the additional $75 million in grants. If that bill passes, Senate Bill 57, is that it would be some seed money to get those industries started, because they're going to be built somewhere, and maybe Kentucky and maybe Eastern Kentucky.
Well, there is a process. We have good facilities here in Kentucky that could pivot to look into the nuclear supply chain, but there's a process to become nuclear certified in order to supply parts into the supply chain. We have to step up our ability to get those companies into the supply chain and expand their opportunities if they want to.
Is that certification you're talking about state level version of it?
No, it's not a state certification. It's an industry certification through companies like Westinghouse, or the NRC will look at that certification too. If you're, Josh can tell you all about that.
Anyone else? Well, we have really enjoyed the conversation. Oh, yeah, go right ahead. There's a mic right behind you.
My name's Danny. I'm a resident of Morehead here too. I'm also a union representative with Local 317, Electrical Workers Union. You know, when they shut down the coal-fired power plants and everything, they had, you know, a lot of our local workers, you know, been displaced all across the United States. So, you know, just to say that focusing on good-paying jobs here in Eastern Kentucky, you know, that's what we need more of. You know, I work at the Union Hall. I see people coming in every day who's looking for good-paying jobs. And, you know, I think this is a perfect opportunity to get ahead of it. I know we've talked about a lot of the problems with recycling, the waste and everything. And I think it's like anything else, personally, you know, as we further develop the technology, we're going to come up with the solutions to solve the problems tomorrow as it continues on. You know what I mean? It's like anything, you know, if we stop completely moving forward, you know, you can't really expect any kind of progress later down the road. So, you know, that's just my 2 cents. All I want to say. Thank you, guys.
Yes.
I'll remind everyone that you can still submit written comments by mailing them to us at 211 Sauer Boulevard, that's SOWER, in Frankfort, Kentucky 40602, or you can email us at psc.comment@ky.gov. If you email or write us, make sure and put the case number in, 2025-0000186. And that way we'll make sure that your public comment gets into the record, and you can continue to be part of this conversation by coming to any of our other 5 meetings that we're having across the state. And all of that information can be found on the PSC's website, or come to our conference at the Kentucky History Center May 12th and 13th. I think there's about a 200-person maximum at that facility, so there'll be a registration process, and that information will be up on our website in the next couple weeks. Right, Sherry? All right. I'll give it just another minute to see if anybody else wants to speak. And if not, I will thank you all again for coming out for a really good discussion, and hope to see all of you continue to be part of the discussion in Kentucky.